The following morning wasn't anything special, nor was the Loud family as active as they usually were. Lana was currently making a few repairs on the fridge since it was been taken down and damaged the other day when it was falling over. She also tightened the legs up so it wouldn't fall over again, and the other Loud siblings sat in their rooms, staring out their windows in despair over their brother. Lucy lay in her coffin bed with the lid shut, writing a sad poem about nearly losing her dear brother. As for Luan, she sat near the edge of her bed, just staring ahead of the wall with a forlorn expression. As for Rita and Lynn, the two of them sat on their bed, worried about their minds about Lincoln. Couldn't sleep well last night, either. I can take it, Lynn said, feeling a bit groggy. No, not really, Rita replied. I just can't stop thinking about Lincoln. Same here, honey, Lynn said. I can't believe something like this happened. I just don't know what to do. Do you really think grounding Luan for the next year was the right decision? I mean, banning her from pulling pranks and telling puns in this house seemed perfectly reasonable, but the whole year of being grounded? That seems a little extreme, Rita wondered. As extreme as it may be, I believe grounding Luan as the rest of the year is perfectly justified, Lynn replied with a firm voice. What she did was beyond deadly serious, Rita. While Luan may not have the defibrillary to cause Lincoln's accident, she still acted recklessly as she always does with these pranks of hers. Almost got him killed in the process. She doesn't deserve to be given any leniency or something like this. True, Rita agreed. But yet I don't know how Luan would make a living now if she's been banned from doing comedy in this house. Comedy, is that all she's known when she was young? Well, yes, that's true, Lynn admitted it. But still, Luan moves out of this until she moves out of this house, we can't allow her to pursue any more of a career. If Luan wishes to continue her career as a comedian, she'll have to do it once she's out of this house. I know that sounds cruel and unfair, but we can't allow Luan to keep doing what she's been doing for the past 10 years, April Fool's Day. While I didn't have so much of a problem with Luan telling jokes and puns, I felt annoying ones at that, but it's her pranking, and that's I have a huge issue with. To be honest, I really didn't care much for Luan's puns or jokes, but I've always had a big issue with her pranks, and she always pulled one every April Fool's Day, Rita admitted as she stood up to Luan. Like true parents would, but to put a stop to her pranking sprees ourselves a long time ago, if we had just fine with that instead of just giving in to the fears and letting Luan have her way, then Lincoln wouldn't have. Rita paused and she felt sorrow returning to her at the thought of her only son in the hospital, his body and mind crippled from Luan's prank trap. Just thinking about it almost made Rita bring in the verge of years that she recalled that Dr. Lloyd had mentioned about Lincoln's condition, on how it could forever affect his life in the worst imaginable way. I know, honey, Lynn replied sadly. As much as I don't want to admit it, I can't continue to deny the fact that Lincoln's accident is partly our fault as well. While I do know that Luan was never interested and purposely dropped the fridge on Lincoln, it's still our fault for not taking action when we still have the chance. We honestly shouldn't have allowed Luan to pull pranks like this in the first place to begin with. But like the idiots we were allowed her to do so. I don't know if I'll ever forgive her for that. Rita knew that her husband was right, and she couldn't deny it. Although Lynn and Rita had eventually been taking action by putting a stop to Luan's pranks once and for all, the damage had already been done, and one of the family members that paid horrible place in the cowardice, Lincoln, would never be able to reach his full potential life due to his internal injuries and severe brain damage. Even if Lisa found some way to help him recover, there is no guarantee that he'll be the same again. I'll never forgive myself either, Rita replied sadly. I just don't know what to do, Lynn. I'm scared for Lincoln. What if something happens to him while he's recovering in the hospital? And how will he be able to live once you and I are gone? I'm just scared as you, Rita. We shouldn't start to panic. If something happens to you or me when our family time comes, we pass on from old age. Lincoln will have his sisters to watch over him. The doctors even mentioned this, and I have complete faith in our daughters that they'll see Lincoln through till the end, Lynn explained. So do I, Rita agreed. As Rita and Lynn continued to comfort each other in the room, Lisa was currently working on a new device in her and Lily's room. While her true goal was to construct one of her other planned inventions to help Lincoln, she wanted to try and help Luan as well. Lily looked up from her crib and gazed at the device that Lisa was constructing, which resembled a metal headband colored gray with a USB plug on its left side and a cord on its right side, and several metal antennas sticking out of it from the sides. "What is that?" Lily asked Lisa in her usual babyish voice. "Oh, this?" Lisa replied, holding up a metal headband. "This device is what I call the MS-3000, or Dream Simulator 3000 for short." "Huh?" Lily asked, obviously confused. "I take it you don't understand what I'm saying, so I'll try to explain," Lisa started. "This device has the ability to create a virtual world within your dreams. Depending on what virtual program you loaded into it, there's only one catch. It will only work when you're asleep. I do plan to test on Luan in order to help her do some closure from what she has done, and try to move on from thinking it's a form of concealing technological sort of way." "Luan sleep?" Lily asked Lisa. "Not now," Lisa said, "but later tonight, once we headed off to bed, I'll slip this device on Luan and give it a go. I've already programmed the perfect dream simulation to DS3000, so hopefully this would help Luan a lot. Afterwards, I'll get started on my other inventions to help Lincoln." Lisa then plugged the DS3000 onto a laptop with a USB cable and ran some diagnostics on it just to make sure it was fully functioning. When she set it back down on the table and began working on the blueprints in order to secret invention that would hopefully aid her into healing some of the Lincoln's injuries once he was out of the hospital. It would take some time to construct due to the complex and advanced mechanics of this invention that it was, but Lisa hoped that it would be completed before the end of the month, if she was lucky. "Wait, he's in the hospital?" Ronnie Ann exclaimed in shock on Laurie's phone. "Yes, I'm afraid it's true," Laurie said sadly. "I take it that Bobby told you last night." "Yes, he told me that Lincoln was in a hospital undergoing surgery, but he didn't tell me why. Bobby got really upset when I asked him about it, and he walked out of the room," Ronnie Ann replied. "Well, it's a long story. I need to warn you that you're not going to like this one bit," Laurie said seriously, then proceeded to tell Ronnie everything that happened the other day on April Fool's Day. Once Laurie mentioned the part about Lincoln being badly crippled by one of Luan's pranks, she began to hear Ronnie starting to tense up over the phone. "No, what happened to him?" Ronnie panicked. "One of Luan's pranks went terribly wrong and caused the refrigerator to fall on Lincoln. It nearly killed him," Laurie explained grimly. "He had to be transported to the hospital in one of those big rig semi-truck ambulances for very serious emergencies. Had one of the ATMs arrived any later, Lincoln would probably be in the freezer vault right now." "Oh my God, how bad is his injuries?" Ronnie asked, clearly worried out of her mind at this point. "Very bad," Laurie replied. "Lincoln's lung got punctured by a broken rib and had to be drained with the trocar ambulance, and he received the broken forearm as well. But that's not even the worst part. He's even paralyzed from the waist down, and for the rest of his life, he's going to have some severe brain damage." "Oh, how bad is it?" "It's not too serious, is it?" Ronnie stuttered, almost too afraid to ask. It's bad, far worse than any other injuries combined," Laurie replied, feeling uneasy. "Lincoln's brain has been damaged so badly that his mind reverted back to a mindset of a toddler, and has suffered memory loss as well as words, and he has been permanently reduced to a state of mental retardation for the rest of his life. Because of this, Lincoln would have to be taken care of for the rest of his life, as well as regards being fed, dressed, bathed, and even using the bathroom. And oh, I forgot to mention that Lincoln will have to be put in diapers again until he's well enough to rededicate into using the toilet." Ronnie Ann was more silent than a minute when she spoke up again, sounding very upset. "Laurie, tell me you're lying. This can't be true, can it be?" Ronnie stammered, only clear at the verge of breakdown at this point. "I really wish I was, Ronnie Ann, but this is no joke. I would have never lied something about this," Laurie said sadly. Then it's true?" Ronnie Ann replied, sounding like she was crying. "Can he at least still speak?" "Yes, but not coherently," Laurie answered. "Due to the brain damage he suffered, Lincoln isn't able to speak normally like he used to. And his best words he could still say is mom, sis, and dad. Other than that, everything Lincoln says is instant gibberish, but he seems slightly aware of his surroundings." "What do you mean by that?" Ronnie Ann asked meekly. "From what I have witnessed, Lincoln seems to be reacting his surroundings the way a toddler would, and even he reacts certain ways to those around him. It's hard to explain the words, so you'll have to see it for yourself to understand better," Laurie answered. I have to see him. Is there any chance I'll be able to visit Lincoln anytime soon?" Ronnie asked, still frantically. Yes, we're all planning to visit him in a bit, but you live at least an hour away, so it will take a while for you to reach the hospital. Also, there's something else you need to consider, Lori said with a bit of concern in her voice. And what is that? Ronnie Ann asked. Remember I said Lincoln suffered from memory loss because of brain damage? Well, there's a good chance he might not recognize you when he sees you. So I thought you should know so you're prepared for when you see him, Lori informed. Don't say that. He'll never forget me. I know he won't, Ronnie Ann snapped in disbelief. Lori could already tell that her tone that Ronnie Ann wasn't taking this well, and couldn't blame her. All of Lincoln's friends had been notified by his families earlier and of what happened to him and what the edge about it, especially Ronnie Ann. Despite it being the toughest girl in her old school and being the huddle almost everything, nothing could have been prepared for Ronnie Ann something like this. There was no mystery on why she would have the possibility of Lincoln no longer recognizing her due to brain damage. Ronnie didn't want to accept the fact that she may end up losing her only boyfriend forever. Not through death, but possible permanent memory loss. Ronnie Ann, I know it's hard to take in, but trust me when I say the fact that we'll have to consider. Now the doctor did say that as Lincoln's brain cells heal over time, he might recover some of his memories, but not all of them, due to how serious the damage that done to his temporal lobe was. Also, Lisa told us that she'll try to see if she can try to construct a new invention that might heal some of his brain damage once Lincoln returns home. But she'll need to try to fully examine him in order to see how badly the damage is, exactly however determine whether or not she could fix some of it, Lori explained. Is that even possible? I know Lisa is a prodigal genius, but I don't even know if she could fix his injuries, Ronnie Ann wondered, sounding a bit tense. Neither do I, Lori replied. Lisa even said that she may not be able to fix the damage entirely due to how serious Lincoln's injuries are, but I can only hope is that she'll be able to try to find a way to restore some of his higher brain functions and his memories. However, Lisa will have to actually examine Lincoln close up to find out what can be healed and what can't be healed. At least until a month until Lincoln returns home. So I take it that Lisa will have to wait a month until she can examine Lincoln to try to help him, Ronnie Ann asked. Yes, unfortunately so, Lori answered with a sorry sigh. I know this is hard for all of us, but we'll get through it. I can only hope Luan will as well. Don't mention that dirty prankster's name. She's the reason that caused Lincoln's horrible state to begin with. How could she even sleep at night after reducing Lincoln to a shell of his former self? I swear to God, I'm going to strangle that prankster when I find her. Ronnie Ann raged. Ronnie Ann, there's no need for that. Luan's really upset and guilt-ridden after causing Lincoln's horrible accident, so beating her to a pulp isn't going to solve anything. That won't undo what Luan did, Lori scolded her. She should be. Why the hell would Luan drop a fridge on Lincoln? She should have known better how badly hurt he could have got something like that, Ronnie Ann snapped coldly. Luan didn't do it intentionally. One of the balancing feet on the fridge was old and loose, and it broke when Lincoln hit it. That's what caused it to fall on him, Lori protested. Well, maybe if Luan did use her head for once and actually checked the fridge for small details like that, this would never happen. Ronnie Ann shot back aggressively. I know. Mom and Dad actually point that out to Luan after we rushed out of Lisa's bunker to try to help Lincoln. I can promise you that she'll never be pranking anyone in our house again or anywhere else ever again. Mom and Dad grounded her for the rest of the year, and they've placed a permanent prank and pun ban to the household. She'll also be required to help pay for Lincoln's hospital bills. Judging from how the surgeries doctors performed, they won't be cheap, Lori explained. Lori, do you honestly think that Luan is ever going to give up pranking that easily? Ronnie Ann questioned. That's a question that struck Lori like a brick at the back of the head. That was the same question Lori herself had asked Lenny last night, and it was probably the most cliche question that had been on everyone's mind since Rita and Lynn had grounded Luan and placed a no pranking or pun ban in the house. Ronnie Ann, I honestly forgot about that long and hard, to be honest. Lori paused with a sigh. I think after seeing the actions caused, she's never going to want to prank anybody again. I honestly don't know what to think about it, Lori. However, from what you told me, I'll have to admit that you do have a point. I could probably see Luan finally coming to her senses after putting her own brother in the hospital, which I imagine that was a huge eye-opener for her. Ronnie Ann admitted it. Yes, and I have no doubt about that. Luan was crying her eyes out in Lincoln's room the other night, and she was begging for forgiveness. From all of us about an hour ago, the pranks that she pulled on us each year. Yeah, I don't think Luan is going to be pranking anyone again anytime soon. If not ever again, Lori said with relief. Will that be a huge relief? Ronnie Ann admitted. Yes, it is, Lori agreed. But I'm also worried for Lincoln. I can imagine that he's going through right now in the hospital. And Lincoln would probably have no clue on what's going on around because of his brain surgery. I'm worried that he might end up hurting himself in the process because of it. My thoughts exactly. Also, how is Lincoln ever going to get around the house if he's paralyzed from the waist down? Ronnie Ann asked. Mom and Dad said they'll have to install a chairlift system into the house so Lincoln will be able to get up to on top of them. Lana agreed to help install that. She's a whiz with gadgets, Lori replied. Will Luan be able to be paying for something like for Lincoln's hospital bills? Ronnie asked curiously. Oh, absolutely, Lori says matter of factly. Mom and Dad are really cracking down hard on Luan for what she's done. Ever since she's caused this conveniently in the first place, they said that she's going to help pay for it. How the heck is Luan going to afford help pay the hospital bills and a chairlift? I know for a fact those won't be cheap, Ronnie Ann wondered. Mom and Dad are currently looking for part-time jobs for Luan. They won't want her working at a joke shop anymore since they're related to comedy. Like I said, they're cracking down real hard on Luan, and that means no being associated with anything related to comedy, Lori answered. Well, I can't blame them for that, Ronnie Ann said. That joke shop must attempt to revert Luan back to her old days, and that thing just went what we wanted, especially after the incident with Lincoln. I'm not so sure if I will ever do that after all that's happened, but it's not worth the risk, Lori replied. No, it isn't, Ronnie Ann agreed. As Lori was about to respond, she heard a knock on the door. Hang on, someone's at my door, Lori said, raising her head upwards. Who's there? It's Lenny. We're going to visit Lincoln in a few minutes, Lenny called out. All right, I'll be down in a minute, Lori responded back. Then she turned to her phone. I gotta get going, Ronnie Ann. We're going to see Lincoln in a few minutes. Okay, I'll try to come see him too, but it might be a while until I get there since Royal Woods is about a few hours away from where I am, Ronnie Ann replied. All right, that's fine. I understand. I'll see you then, Lori said. Then she hung up.